her jeans, his daughter Julie, and her boyfriend Chris. And they say they're sorry that they snuck up on him.
Yes, the very famous Tyrese, who, if you're like a member of, message boards or Facebook groups or Twitter and you only watch the TV show, this is the Tyrese that everybody's been talking about, begging for, saying T-Dog is him, saying he will find Sophia, amongst many other scenarios.
Yes, this is indeed Tyrese. He and his family, or his daughter and her boyfriend, have not eaten for several days, so Rick and the group invite them to spend the night under their protection and eat some of their food. And the next morning, Rick and Tyrese kind of have a getting to know each other conversation. It's a lot of conversation, which the book is kind of known for. You'll have your moments of explosive violence and action, and then you'll have many, many pages where there's more dialogue in a panel than there is actual art.
Yeah, and if we can backtrack one page to the last couple of panels when they meet Tyrese, this is part of the. I just had to bring this up because I want it to be known that the Lori hate isn't like totally unwarranted. She gives Rick a hard time in the last couple of panels here, saying that they shouldn't trust Tyrese. And Rick is saying, "Come on, he's got kids with him. We should help them." And Lori's kind of, you're inviting a stranger to sleep in the same room with us. And she says, we have kids too, but don't be so trusting, Rick. And she's got like this nasty face on. Anyway, that's just part of the annoying first few signs of Lori being kind of a strong personality. I won't say annoying.
So in that conversation that Rick and Tyrese have, they discuss all the things Tyrese and his family have been through. Apparently, Julie was almost raped by a nice old man that they thought was a nice old man, but turned out that the first time he met another human being after everything went down, first thing on his mind was raping someone. So they've been through quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think he admit here that he ended up killing the guy, like beating him to death?
Yeah, he says, I killed that man, Rick. I wanted to, but I didn't mean to. I beat on him and he died. And Rick says, pretty much, don't beat yourself up on that. Any dad would do that. You did the right thing.
And this is kind of like, this is important in the book because a main theme in the book is like, who are really the monsters? The humans or the zombies. There's a lot of violence and terrible things done to each other from the people in the book. I don't think we've gotten there yet in the television show. Yeah, they've met some not nice people, but
nobody. You have Shane with Otis as an example.
Yes, Shane is the first. That's a good point. Shane is the only character so far that sort of brought that theme into the TV show. But I'm assuming that we're going to get a lot more of that in the near future.
Right. Or maybe even with Ed a little bit. Ed was a pretty terrible guy, but he is gone now.
Yes.
So they're having this conversation. They discuss where they went to, all the different things they've seen. When they see two walkers coming from the distance, so Rick pulls out his hatchet to our caller on WDTV in the past show, or was it a caller email? I don't remember, but who was upset that Rick didn't have a hatchet yet, and we didn't really remember when Rick got the hatchet. Apparently, he already has it now.
Yeah, and they're concerned with making noise, which is another thing that we've been talking about. But they haven't really. They've been firing a lot of guns off in the TV show, and in the book it's a constant theme that you can't. You gotta. Not only are you conserving ammo, you're staying quiet.
Right. And so Rick grabs the hatchet, Tyrese grabs his trusty hammer, and they go to town on the two approaching zombies.
Yeah, it's beautiful how you can go, like you said, Jordan, from double-page splash of constant dialogue to like double-page splash of just zombies taking blunt and sharp weapons to the head.
And just all the sound effects, fox, black, thunk. So they go back on the road, they find cars in the way, and they get help from Tyrese to move the cars so they can actually get through on the road, and so they're very happy to have him around. And we can see that Carol, yes, the same Carol from the show, is starting to develop some feelings for Tyrese, and they're very clearly mutual.
Yeah, what a different Carol, huh?
Yeah, she's much more forward. But I mean, that's one of the things with the show. We got the chance to see her relationship with her husband, and it made her a much more three-dimensional character. Here, all she really is Tyrese's love interest. In the show, you know a lot more about her, how she feels, how she acts, and it's probably more interesting, I think, in the show too.
Yeah, and I would say that she's probably portrayed as younger and maybe more feminine in the book.
A little bit. And we also see, as they sit around the campfire eating that night, that as Tyrese makes another pass at Carol, that Glenn seems to be a little bit miffed at this. So Rick looks around and he notices that Lori is walking away, so he goes to talk to her. She turns around and she tells him, Rick, everything's not okay. I'm pregnant.
Yep, and that's how Robert Kirkman ends issues of the Walking Dead comic book.
Yes.
I was going to say, if you decide to read the comic after seeing the show, be prepared for a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end of each and every issue.
Do you think Glenn was upset because he had some feelings for Carol, or do you think it's just the Glenn loneliness, he wants
It's
somebody...
a little bit of both. He goes into it in like issue 10 or 11, just briefly with Maggie, but yeah, he definitely had at least a crush on Carol. Because again, she did seem a little bit younger in the book, even though he mentions that she was old for him, but still, there's not exactly a lot of choices around. So Rick and Lori come back to the group, and she tells the entire group that she's pregnant, and I believe it's Alan says, I don't know what to say, so Rick tells him congratulations has worked for years.
No, in the show, she hasn't told everyone, right? Only Glenn and Rick and Shane know so far, and Dale.
Right, but yeah, at least of their immediate group, not counting her family and stuff. So again, Dale comes up to Rick and says, talking about the other day with Rick and Lori, so she's pregnant. You think it could be his? And Rick immediately tells him to drop it. And Dale doesn't drop it. He comes back with, hey, you've only been with us a little over a month. Think of the timing. And Rick blows up at him and says, not another damn word.
I like the shading they put over his face there, too, to give him a little bit more of a menacing air than before we saw him at the campfire with the worm. We're going to have a baby. Now he's showing Dale the other side of his temper,
Yeah, Adler does a great job with negative space. Like at nighttime, he basically colors the whole panel black, and then, the snowflakes are actually not colored in, so you get your white specks and stuff. He does the same with like the shadowing on the faces. Like it's more all black, and then, just the eyeball in the shadow will not be colored in. So it's sort of like a negative space type of feel.
And this is another example of maybe Dale being a little bit more of a busybody than I remembered in the book.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I actually give him credit now. He's more like I thought in the TV show. He's more like the book than I remember.
It's like, why the hell would you bring this up? It's not your business. Clearly, he's already thinking about it. Just let sleeping dogs lie.
Do you think Glenn is a little younger in the book?
I know Maggie's younger because they specifically mentioned that she's 19 in the book and she's 22 in the show.
Just because the beard isn't white, really. Like the beard's maybe.
Oh, you said Dale. I think you said Glenn. Maybe.
I think it might just be that Jeffrey DeMunn is probably older than the character in the book, but that's the actor that they wanted. You know what I mean?
Also, the beard is shorter. It looks more like a little bit more than stubble, but a little less than a beard.
Yeah.
I always thought of Dale as being maybe mid-40s, early 50s in the book, but DeMunn's clearly older than that.
Right. And they also aged Andrea on the show as well. She's much younger in the book. So the next day, they're driving along. They're driving past deserted, burned out buildings. There's nothing for them there. They get out to take another walk around, get some more gasoline, siphon it out of some old cars, when Dale gets scared by a half-frozen zombie on the ground. So they rush over to help him, and Glenn looks down and he says, I think it's frozen, and it makes another noise, and he screams and falls down on his butt just like Dale. And it's quickly dispatched of with Rick's hatchet.
I love when they take the zombie, like there's a lot of things you can do with the zombie. Like if it doesn't have, if it's not pumping blood, if it's dead, then it could be frozen and still kind of kicking. Like just different little takes on it. Like we've seen cut in half and they're dragging themselves because they don't really bleed out. The only way to kill them is through the head. So it could be like totally frozen, really. And if the head's got a little bit of room to wiggle, it's still going to be kicking and making noises. And
we even saw on the show, wasn't the first time that Nicotero showed up when he was eating the deer, was he decapitated first and then they shot the head? Or did they just like beat him down and then shoot him in the head? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't recall.
I might have the separate heads from the end of the remake of Dawn of the Dead confused with his. But
I thought they beat him down. It looked like it was like a team effort. They all took him down.
Right. So they get back in the car, they drive a little more, and they come across a place called Wiltshire Estates. And Rick, or someone, I guess it's Rick, says, I think we just hit the jackpot, which is probably Spider-Man reference.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we haven't seen Wilshire Estates explicitly in the show. A lot of the purpose of Wilshire Estates was fulfilled by the CDC. It was a place where they could rest, recuperate for just a little bit, feel safe, and then things go to hell and they have to move on. But also, when Shane and Andrea go to that development looking for Sophia, it also has a very similar feel and look to this particular town.
That's exactly what I was thinking when I saw that episode. I'm like, now is this going to end up being Wilshire Estates? If Herschel, successfully does eject them from the farm, is this where we're going to go next in the show?
And I have a feeling that they're probably going to skip it entirely. I hope so, at least, especially because this happens first in the book. And I don't know, it just feels a little bit too similar to, it's a little too generic, if you know what I mean. Like a lot of the other set pieces have much more character and are much more memorable than this one.
And just for anyone who might be listening along and not flipping through the pages of the book, Wilshire Estates is a very nice gated-in community. So it gives kind of the idea that no zombies could be in there if it was locked. Or if they clean out everybody that's in there, then they should be safe behind the gates.
Right.
That's very much the plan as they move in, too. They go house to house to clean it out.
And that's exactly what they do. The kids stay in the RV to stay safe. They go house to house. Rick looks around. He says, "Hey, I found a basement. These houses are bigger than he looks." And then zombie Peter Cushing and zombie Otis bust out of the basement and take him by surprise. He manages to chop one across the side of the neck with his hatchet, and he's about to be eaten by the other with Dale pointing a gun at it, but he can't quite get it. When Tyrese comes out of nowhere and tackles the fat zombie out of the way, and Rick is able to take care of it with the hatchet, and Tyrese takes care of the other one with the hammer.
I like the panels here at the bottom of this page. They're both men doing the same action, and the repetitive sound effects going off panel. Just a really nice effect. Like
Yeah,
and I would say it's more Tor Johnson than Otis.
Okay.
The particular fat zombie.
But definitely the same with Peter Cushing. I mean, look at that first panel. It's cracking right there.
Montgomery Burns, perhaps?
Yeah, a little bit. So after they kill those, they look around in the basement, they find another zombie, they take care of it, they drag him outside, and they decide that once they have enough bodies, they'll burn them and get rid of it. And Rick asks Tyrese, "Hey, that was a really good tackle. Where'd you learn that?" And we find out that Tyrese played for 2 years in the NFL. And then eventually became a used car salesman, or at least car salesman, doesn't say used.
It was odd that for me when watching the show, I thought that T-Dog was going to kind of fill the role that Tyrese does in the comic, but that hasn't been the case at all. Now I wonder if Tyrese is going to be introduced later on. I kind of hope he is, because he's a good strong character and a good foil for Rick.
It'll be interesting. It seems to me that a lot of his character traits, or at least character beats and different things, have been split between Shane and Daryl. With Daryl falling in love with Carol, it seems, and Shane fulfilling the alpha male role. If they do eventually bring him in, it'll be interesting to see what another alpha male brings to the mix when we've already got 3 of them. So Rick says that he thinks the whole NFL thing's pretty cool. It's a lot better than his job as a cop. And Tyrese says, "Oh, I always assumed you were a badass cop, hero cop, the way you've been handling yourself." And Rick tells him, "Lord, no, I was a regular Barney Fife." So after they get that house clear, they move everybody inside. They decide that for the first night at least, they'll all sleep inside this one house to be safe. And then once they've cleared out some more, they'll disperse about the town. So Rick, Lori, and Carl are in one room, and Donna is going around bringing blankets to the different groups. She next goes to Tyrese and tells him to take an extra one for Carol, so even she can tell that something's going on there. And next she comes to the room where Dale and Andrea are, and she kind of knocks but kind of doesn't, and she sees through the crack in the door that Dale and Andrea are definitely infiltrante delicto, as they say in pretentious terms, or as Jim prefers, hanky-panky.
Getting it on.
And I guess this could be considered a possible spoiler for the TV show. I mean, Andrea and Dale could end up being involved in the TV show, but I don't think so. They seem way too far different in age. Again, I can see it being Dale having the creepy kind of crush and fatherly, being overprotective and stuff, but I don't see them ever being together.
I totally agree with that, John. They have a totally different dynamic on the show, totally different kind of relationship than they did in the book. And I agree also with what you're saying about being the age difference. Here, like I said, Dale is more of a middle-aged guy rather than an older guy. So I guess we see him and Andrea hooking up is not that huge of a deal.
Well, that's true, but she's also in her very early 20s instead of in her mid-30s in the book. But also, I think it could happen in the show, but if it does, it'll probably be a while. I don't see it happening this season, or if it does, right towards the end. So Donna gets back to her husband Alan, and they talk for a while, and he notices, hey, it's getting warm outside, the snow's melting off the window, and the camera moves outside of the house. It moves all the way to the edge of Wilshire Estates where we can see the RV parked out front, and there's a sign out front with snow on it, and we see it start to melt, the snow plops to the ground, and revealed below on the sign, it says, "All dead, do not enter." And that is how issue number 8 ends.
Yes, so there must be a lot more of them.
Yeah, it's not just the 3. I love the cover of issue number 9. It's a close-up on an eye with a fly sitting right on the eyeball, and in the reflection of the retina, we can see the back of Rick carrying not just a hatchet, but a full-blown fire axe. It's very cool piece of art.
I've got the hardcover of all the collected covers of the first 50 issues and hardcovers of The Walking Dead, and it's well worth getting. It's a great coffee table book. All the cover art from the entire series is really outstanding.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So Rick wakes up and he finds that Lori beat him to waking up, and they have a brief discussion. They talk about Carl sleeping there. We go to the next room where Tyrese, Carol, Sophia, Chris, and Julie are all sleeping. We can see that maybe in a sleep or maybe not, Tyrese rolled over and has his arm around Carol, and she's just fine with it. Then we cut over to Donna and Alan, who have a conversation, and he propositions her right before the twins wake up, and they interrupt them, and it doesn't go any farther.
Yeah, Donna's loosening up a little bit here. I think we kind of breezed over a quick scene where she's actually happy to find Carol and Tyrese. No, to find Andrea and Dale.
Which is weird considering how disapproving she was of the same exact pairing just a little bit earlier.
Right, and she tries to kind of explain that she's just happy to see people happy for once, and I think Alan says something like the Ice Queen melted or something like that. So they're acknowledging that she's a pain in the neck and she's lightening up a little bit here.
Right.
Hey, lighten up, it's the apocalypse, baby. Loosen up, come on.
So, and I think that humanizing moment was important considering what comes next. The next day, the group, they go out, they decide to go look for canned food because their food supply is starting to run pretty low. And so they all take different houses and groups, they take the guns with them. And Alan and Donna have a brief conversation where she tells him, it ends by her telling him that you worry too much as he walks away. And we can see right behind her is a zombie walking out of a doorway. Meanwhile, Rick goes back to the RV, I think to get his gun. And as he turns around to walk back inside, he sees for the first time the "All Dead Do Not Enter" sign, and he quickly runs back inside to warn the others. So we then cut back to Donna, who sees the zombie. She screams, it groans, and then in one of the most graphic images of this volume, probably, we get a half-page splash of the zombie biting her right in the eye socket, and it is gross.
Yeah.
You know what, though? It looks really great in black and white. I think if this were color and they were to do it with the color of the blood and everything, it would look good, but I don't think it would look as good as this does.
Yeah, this is really moody. It really conveys it really well. So Alan, of course, has his gun, and he runs over, but at that same moment, Rick runs in and yells, "Don't shoot, don't fire your guns, whatever you do, don't shoot, because we're in danger." So Tyrese not quite tackles, but he grabs Alan and tries to stop him from firing the gun, but Alan does anyway, and then we get a series of 5 panels from all around Wilshire Estates as we see zombies catching notice of the sound. And as we flip to the next page, we can see a panel that reminds me definitely of when Shane and Andrea went to that development in episode 4 or 5, as we see zombies coming out of every doorway noticeable as they come right towards that sound.
I love those first 5 panels when all the zombies hear the gunshot. They're all kind of like looking at the quote camera. They're looking right at the reader like, oh,
I know, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like they're all like, what?
So they quickly decide it's time to get the hell out of here. Everybody head for the RV. Alan is very clearly shaken up by what has just happened. Rick has to take out a couple zombies just to save Alan's life. Everybody runs back to the house that they were all in. They run for the RV. But Julie and Chris are still back at the house. They didn't want to go out looking for the other houses. They're young, so Tyrese has to go get them. And when he finds them, they're either just about to begin or just finished having sex. He kind of freaks out, but decides right now you just need to get your clothes on and we gotta get out of here. So they head out onto the roof because the steps are already getting covered in zombies.
Everybody can't wait to do it. As soon as they get into private lodgings.
Did maybe the zombies are an aphrodisiac or something? Just like everybody wants to get a little something.
It's that new zombie smell. So they're up on the roof. They can't get down. They are surrounded, like literally surrounded by zombies. This is probably the most zombies you'll see in one panel for the majority of The Walking Dead. There's a good 50 in this one panel. And the only way they can get down is that Dale drives right into the center of the zombies with the RV, and they jump down on the roof. They head for the gate, and they crash out as the RV is covered in zombie gore.
You can kind of hear the 18th theme as the scene goes by.
I'm not even joking. I kind of did hear that in the back of my head. It's like, dun, 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 dun. It's the way it's happening here.
The tomb as they make their way out of the Wilshire Estates.
I pity the zombie.
It wasn't a very long stay at the Wilshire Estates.
Yeah. So they quickly hit the road. Alan is clearly dealing with some grief, some post-traumatic stress disorder. He's not handling it very well, and everyone can tell that.
We get this quiet shot, after he tells the twins that his mother is dead, the mother is dead. We get this nice panel of everyone gathering, around Laurie hugging the twins, and then that one desolate shot of the RV, against the horizon. It's like very cinematic. It's no wonder it's been made into a television. It has been made into a television show. Just very good use of point of view from the artist.
Definitely. So they continue along on their journey, and they get to a store that both inside and outside reminds me quite a bit of the pharmacy near Herschel's farm, where Glenn and Maggie got it on. Just the whole look of it. And I love Rick's look. He kind of looks like Lawrence of Arabia. He's got a towel wrapped around his head, got a tied place with some rope to keep himself warm. But we can tell that the group is running very low on food. Because they're running low on food, Rick and Tyrese decide we're going to go hunting. We've got guns, we've got bullets, and we've got the wilderness. It's time to go hunt and kill some food because we're starving.
Hey, 1 second here. I was just thinking to myself, yeah, Shane, Rick probably doesn't have like real warm clothes because he's from Atlanta or whatever. Where did they travel? I guess I'm forgetting what happened in Volume 1 completely. They've obviously driven some extent to be in the snow, right? Because
at one point in the story, they mentioned that they're about 30 miles from Atlanta. I don't remember exactly where in this volume, but I know at one point they mentioned it.
Okay, so I'm going to guess 30 miles north of Atlanta.
I mean, it could just be an unseasonably cold season,
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of snow for the Georgia area. But anyway.
Okay, definitely. So Rick and Tyrese go hunting, but Carl wants to come as well. And so they, after a little discussion, decide to bring him along with them. What's the worst that could happen? So Rick, Tyrese, Carl go out to the woods, and they're not there very long. They hear a noise when all of a sudden, straight through the chest, Carl is shot. And out of the woods comes a man who says, I'm sorry, please don't shoot me. It was all an accident, I swear. And Rick grabs him. What did you do? What did you do? Do you realize what you've done? I'll kill you. I'll effing kill you, as he puts his gun to the guy we know as Otis's face.
Skinny Otis.
Skinny Otis, yes. They say the camera adds about 150 pounds.
Yeah.
Otis of Earth 1. That's how we start referring to the TV, the comic, the Earth 1, Earth 2.
Right. Again, it's funny how your mind just plays games with you. I would have sworn that Carl was looking at a deer in the comic as well, but I guess not.
Nope, no deer in the comic at all. And no Sophia missing at this point. Sophia is absolutely fine. Starving to death, but aside from that, she's fine. So Rick, issue 10 begins with Tyrese yelling, Rick, stop, don't do it. He's still breathing, Rick. Carl isn't dead. And Rick quickly drops Otis and rushes back over to his son. So in a scene that we didn't get in the show, it just kind of cut from the shooting to them running through the woods towards the farmhouse. We get Otis, describing, hey, I live and work with this guy Herschel. He can help. His son got shot in the foot. He patched him up good. This is where we need to go. And so they do. Meanwhile, Tyrese goes back to the group to let them know what happened, and they hit the road as fast as they can. We see Herschel's farm for the first time. It's actually an overhead shot, and at least the homestead portion seems a little bit smaller in the book than in the show. It's maybe 4 acres fenced in with some fields around it, but it definitely feels more claustrophobic than the one we saw in the show.
Yeah, the one in the show seemed very open. Especially with this aerial shot establishing, it seems very closed in. Usually on the show, if a walker approaches, they're not blocked from it at all, but they can see it coming from a long way away because it's such an open field. And I remember there's even that one shot where Herschel and Rick are talking. They look out over the expanse and just open rolling field here. Especially like I said, with the use of this aerial shot, we see the confined nature of the farmhouse and the barn.
So Herschel comes out and they explain to him the situation, and he starts patching up Carl. And we see Rick is got a blood-covered shirt, and he's very dazed. It's very reminiscent of the scene, almost identical in the show, except the first person to get to him is Laurie instead of Shane. Herschel comes out and says he's got him patched up. There's a lot of bleeding, but he might pull through. We'll see. And then he introduces our group to his group. We have Herschel, we have his eldest daughter Lacey, a guy with a ponytail who's his son Arnold, his daughter Maggie, his youngest son Billy, and Rachel and Susie, who are the youngest. So a slightly bigger family in the book than in the show, although it's kind of hard to tell in the show because there always seems to be another kid running around.
And here, this is Otis and his girlfriend, Patricia.
Yeah, very clearly stated.
And who's the son in the show that keeps volunteering with Rick's group?
That is not Herschel's son. That is the boyfriend of one of his daughters. So I would guess there seems to be the family's changed around a little bit. Instead of the youngest son Billy, there's a girl around that age, and Jimmy is her boyfriend. And there's no Lacey as far as I can tell in the show. There's no Arnold, and there might be one younger girl than the one who's got the boyfriend, but I'm not entirely sure.
Gotcha.
If I had one, I know it's kind of a minor complaint, but it's a major complaint for me is you never really see how many people in that farm, and it wouldn't take that long to explain it. But regardless.
Well, they're already trying to sell an ensemble cast. Maybe this would be too confusing to add all these other characters.
I agree, but also if you're going to have them, you might as well explain who they are. Plus, it's zombie fodder. But like I said, regardless. Rick and Laurie sit by Carl's bed, and they have a discussion about his fate, and it's an interesting twist on what's on the show. Here, Rick says, if only Carl could sleep until this was all over, to which Laurie says, geez, Rick, we don't want him to be in a coma, what a terrible thing to say. So he had a little bit of a role reversal there.
More pain in the neck, Laurie.
Well, I mean, when Laurie said her piece, saying what Rick is saying, people beat up on her on the TV show, and now she's saying the opposite, saying he's the one saying it, and she's saying, don't say that's terrible, so she can't win.
No, she definitely can't.
So Otis is sitting outside where he was either chopping wood or he's at least sitting where they chop wood, and Tyrese comes to talk to him, and he apologizes again. He says, I wouldn't hurt a fly, which is, I think, a line we heard directly from Herschel in the show, where he discusses Otis. And Tyrese mentions that they just came from this neighborhood that was overrun by zombies, and Otis' neighborhood, well, that must have been Wilshire Estates. Patricia and I were there when all this started. Everyone in there who couldn't make it to Atlanta decided to hole up there. It was a disaster. We didn't have no protection. Once them things come in, we had no way of stopping them. Patricia and I barely made it out alive. Ben and Billy, the twins, are out throwing snowballs at each other in the fields, and Alan's watching them. And Andrea comes over and tries to talk to him and says, look, you need to think of your kids. I can tell you're really depressed, but you need to get hold of yourself. And he yells at her, my wife just died. He's not interested in listening.
No.
Yeah, Alan's kind of whiny at this point. I mean, considering he has 2 young boys that need him, and he needs. I mean, everybody's lost people, friends, family, loved ones. I mean, I don't know why he feels like he is any different than anyone else. I guess because he just lost her, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little unclear. But so Rick and Lori are sleeping, and Herschel comes to tell him your son's awake, so they rush in. And the first thing Carl wants to know is, where's my hat? Because, of course, in the show, we saw it was after he woke up that he got the hat, but in the book, he got the hat and his six-shooter much, much earlier.
And in the show, it's Where's Sophia?
That's true, yeah. That is true. But, of course, after he meets, or he doesn't meet Tyrese, but he talks to Tyrese, Tyrese gives him his hat back. They talk about there's going to be some new people, and then who comes in but Sophia, who wanted to see Carl. She runs over, and she asks him, did it hurt? Says, I don't know. I don't remember. I think so. I bet I'm going to have a big scar. She says, cool. Scars are sexy. Sexy? You don't even know what that means. Neither do you. Well, so I'm not the one who tried to say it. And she kisses him on the cheek, to which he replies, you gross. A scene we will kind of unfortunately never get to see in the show.
No, if Sophia kisses Carl now,
Yeah, we're going to put Carl down too.
But seeing as that's how pretty much the one scene of Sophia I remember from the whole book series, it's not a major loss. Anyway, Lori and Dale have a conversation. Again, Dale sticking his nose where it doesn't belong, and he pretty much says to her, if the baby Shane's, never tell Rick, despite the fact that he's the one who tried to put the thought in Rick's head that it could be Shane's in the first place. And then he tells her baby's ready.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. He's a strange
Dale's a
character.
busybody.
Yep.
So we have our big dinner scene, somewhat reminiscent of the one in the show, although of course Otis is still alive. There's no Shane. Again, Tyrese makes a pass at Carol, and we can see that Glenn is more than a little upset about that. But then we cut outside where Maggie, who's sitting across from him, has a discussion with him, and she brings it up. She says, you clearly have something for her. And he says, before Tyrese came, I guess I had my eyes on Carol. She's a bit older than me, but I liked her. I guess I'm just a little pissed I never made my move. They have a little bit more of a discussion about sex and how the fact he wanted to have a little bit more before he died. And she tells him straight out, I'll sleep with you. If that's what you're in for, I'll sleep with you.
But that's not how she says it.
That's not the exact
She
thing.
uses the adult F-bomb at the beginning.
We then cut to Tyrese, who comes to talk to Julie and her boyfriend Chris, and he says, we need to talk, more or less. If you get pregnant, this is going to end terribly because we got zombies. I don't even know how Rick and Lori are going to handle it, but you need to keep your pants on because this is just not going to work out. And after he walks away, Chris says, Julie, see, I told you we needed to go ahead and do it. I want to be together with you for the rest of eternity. I don't want your father to stand in the way of that. She says, I know, I just don't want to do it until the time is right. We have to wait. And he says, fine, Julie, we'll play it your way, but I don't want to wait forever. So something is clearly up with those two.
And two characters that aren't even in the television show at all, right?
Not yet, no, yeah. So Rick and Herschel are having a conversation, looking in on the horses in the field. It's somewhat similar to ones they've had in the show, but only similar. And they talk about kind of where they've come from. And Herschel says to Rick, you're welcome to enjoy the farm while Carl heals. You can stay out here. You've got your RV. We don't have a lot of room inside. But you can use some of our food, etc. And Rick brings up the barn. He says, what about the barn? You think we can move into that place? Most of us are pretty sick of cramming into the RV. And in this version, Herschel is much more forthcoming. He says, the barn? You don't want to go in there. Trust me. That's where we keep our dead ones. And that ends issue number 10.
Crazy. Herschel zombie barn.
Yeah, it's much more clear here, too. Not that they didn't clear it up in the show, because they did it right off the bat. It's where we keep our dead ones. So you know right off the bat that all his family and friends that end up going, that's what he's doing with them.
Right. And so we pick up on issue 11, and Rick says, dead ones. What do you mean the dead ones? And Herschel quickly explains exactly why he's keeping them in there. We don't know these things could be healed tomorrow, and, if you're killing them, because Rick tells him you're killing them, you've just been killing them. And Rick says they're putting them out of their misery.
It's like you said, it's framed a lot differently, but it's the same argument that's from the TV show. You have Herschel saying they can be cured, it's a disease, and Rick is just like, we've been putting them down. It's a little different, but basically the same argument.
Yeah, there's no real religious bent to Herschel in the book, which I actually think, even though I'm not huge on that subject myself in real life, I think it worked better in the show where you gave him a little bit more of a basis for his beliefs more than just, well, I think they can wake up tomorrow. And of course, we learned that his son is in there, his son Sean, not his stepson, like in the show, but his son. And we also learned that his wife, I don't know if it was right here, but his wife died several years earlier.
Yeah, I think he mentions that in the first part of the conversation with Rick, which is actually the last issue.
Okay. So they kind of argue, and he says, Rick, get your hands off me. What do you mean it's not my son in there? What made you such an expert? I don't know about you, but the zombies around here didn't come with an effing instruction manual. And it's Tyrese who's the one who pulls Rick back and says, Rick, we're guests here, man. We aren't making the rules. Just stop this. So Rick was feeling much more of a shame role in this particular conversation.
Yeah, and I think you can track that back. I mean, already in this volume, he's yelling at Dale for bringing up Christmas. He's yelling at Dale for bringing up Shane and Lori. He's about to kill Otis when Otis shoots Carl. He's blowing up here at Herschel. It's just this is the different Rick that we've been talking about on the Walking Dead TV show that we really haven't seen this Rick in the television show.
Right.
It almost seems like some of the more proactive aspects of Rick have ended up in Shane's character.
And Tyrese gets to play the other voice of reason.
I agree with that, and it makes sense because you wouldn't have to, I think on the television show, they want the opposite. Rick's the nice guy, Shane's the bad guy. Whereas, to have Rick be this way, they'd be the same character, because I don't think you could ever have Shane be the good guy just because of how it all started. But
right. We learned there are 14 zombies total inside the barn, mostly just friends and family, neighbors that they've gone to their house to see if there's any food left, and they found their zombified neighbors, so they brought them there to keep them safe. That night, Rick has
I'm sorry. That's another distinction I wanted to make too. Is that the people that they have in the barn in the comic are people that they know. I mean, like I said, his son, his family, and then his friends and neighbors. In the show, it's just random people that ended up caught in that one sand pile or whatever.
Well, it was a little bit of a mix. I mean, he does mention that there's also a couple that have wandered onto the property. So it's still kind of a mix. Rick has a conversation with Alan that night, and says, are you doing that okay? You'll get through this, man. Don't worry. We also see Glenn and Maggie kind of sneaking away to get the groove thing on. The next day, Rick comes over to talk to Herschel and kind of just apologize for his outburst the day before. He says, I didn't mean to jump on you like that. I just been a little edgy since Carl got shot, and I was way out of line. He then mentions that they're going to do some target practice, just like in the show, and he invites Herschel's kids to come along, and any of Herschel's family, and he says that Lacey, Arnold, and I guess Maggie would probably be up for that, but he doesn't want the young ones carrying guns yet. They're a little bit too young for it. So again, quite a big difference between this Herschel and the Herschel of the show.
Yeah, the Herschel of the show is vehemently anti any of the guns.
Yeah, I mean, he still relents eventually, but it's begrudgingly. Again, Andrea tries to talk to Alan and try to talk to him and make him lighten up and kind of deal with things, and he again tells her to leave him alone. Rick has a conversation with Tyrese and Carol where he mentions that Sophia's in there with Carl, and he says, I swear, a few more years, and we're going to have to keep an eye on those two. They're getting along a little too well for their age.
Yeah,
I thought it was funny, but again, something we'll never see in the show, at least not with that particular character.
No.
So on the next page, the group is at their target practice. Glenn is helping Maggie fire the gun, and they all have some fun shooting at cans. And then Herschel runs up and says, stop shooting right now. The direction you're shooting is towards the Thompson house, and you're going to be shooting right through their house. And then when they eventually come back, their house is going to be destroyed, and I can't allow that.
So he's basically got no clue.
Yeah, it's very delusional. And then a zombie in shorts, a Hawaiian shirt, and flip-flops comes walking up towards the fence.
I just want to say that that's how all the zombies look in Dead Island.
Yeah, pretty much. This one does not have a left arm. And it looks like he has several bullet holes in the chest. So clearly someone did not learn that you have to shoot him in the head. So Rick is going to shoot him, and Herschel says, I can't let you do that. We're going to put him into the barn just like the others. And instead of using the kind of stray dog handling wires on the end of a stick, Herschel puts on some gloves, and he grabs this one by the head and by the shoulder, and he manhandles it over to the barn.
I love that one panel of Herschel holding him, and you just get a gub out of the zombie.
Yeah. So he brings it over to the barn. He flips open the latch, and there's a zombie right there at the door that kind of pushes it open. He gets knocked back, and he falls on his back, and there are all the zombies who come towards him. And I'm a little unclear why, but it looks like Arnold and somebody else are up in the loft of the barn at the same moment, and they yell down. I'm a little confused as to the logistics of this. But
Well, that's where Patricia fed them from the show. Maybe that's what they were in the middle of doing.
maybe, but it was still a little weird. Like, why are they in there? I didn't understand what's happening. But so Arnold, the ponytail, jumps down to help his dad, and he butts one of the zombies out of the way, but another one grabs him and bites him right across the neck. Some of the group heads for the house to stay safe while the others come to attack the zombies. And Herschel's trying to reason with zombie Sean inside. He says, he's your brother, Sean. Don't do this. You've got to remember. The zombies also grab, I guess this is Lacey, the older daughter, and they rip her to shreds. And eventually Herschel finally grabs a gun, and he shoots one, says, I'm sorry, Sean. Probably Shaun of the Dead reference. Shoots another, says, I'm sorry, Arnold. And then he just finally tells the whole group, I'm sorry, and he puts a gun to his head, and only after Rick kind of swipes the gun away does he stop contemplating suicide immediately.
I love the one panel of like the four zombies. It's an overhead shot eating Lacey. I guess it reminds me of that shot with the horse.
Yeah. On the next page, they're having a funeral for Sean, Lacey, and Arnold, although I guess Sean was already more dead. But Herschel, with tears in his eyes, looks at Rick and says, you were right. So on the last page of issue 11, Chris and Julie come over to Tyrese and say, hey, Dad, Mr. Grimes never took our guns back after target practice, and we didn't want you to get mad at us for still having them, so giving them to you. And Tyrese says, look, you know what? Just hold on to them. You'll be safer with them, and I don't want you to see them out unless it's an emergency. Keep them holstered at all times. And so they say, okay, they walk away. And Chris says to Julie, finally, I thought the bastard would never let us have the guns. It's going to be so much easier now. And she says, yes, we'll do it as soon as the time is right. I love you, Chris. And he says, I love you too. So the plot thickens with him.
Yeah, I sort of remember like the first reference they make to these two wanting to do something. I guess because Tyrese comes in and they're having sex, or about to, I should say, that I thought Chris was just being a jerk and was talking about doing it, meaning wanting to do it with her.
But clearly there's something else.
Right, and this was kind of like the aha moment, like, what do these guns have to do with it? So it is very an interesting little, again, end of an issue.
And issue 12, the final issue we'll be going over tonight, opens with Rick and Lori and Carl waking up, and Carl starts to talk, but she immediately encounters some morning sickness, and she runs to the bathroom, to which Carl says, Mom throwing up again? Rick says yes, and he says, oh. We then cut to Maggie's room, where Maggie and Glenn are snuggled away in bed, when Herschel opens the door and quickly freaks out and starts yelling at them. And Maggie says she was just upset about Lacey. She's never slept alone in the room before. She needed someone to keep her company. And that she loves him. And that she's 19, so she's 3 years younger than in the show. And Herschel wears long johns. Just fun fact.
I could see something like this happening before the TV show group leaves the farm.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully we don't have to see that actor in long johns, though.
Yeah.
So a lot of the rest of the group is out in the barn, and they're cleaning it up, kind of cleaning it from some of the zombie filth. When they decide, you know what, this isn't going to work. Rick says, damn it, this is stupid. We're cleaning this place up so we can live in it. We're going to live in a barn for the rest of our lives. And he says, I'm going to find Herschel. So he goes to Herschel, who is brushing a horse, and he says, Herschel, you got a minute? Look, I know it's not the best time to bring this up with what happened yesterday, but you've got more room in the house now. We're not going to sleep in the barn forever. It's pointless. Why don't you let us in the house? There's plenty of extra room. And Herschel says, absolutely not. You're welcome here while your boy heals. When he's done, you go. You're not moving in here. You're not taking my son's room. No.
So this is kind of how it ended up. They started this way on the TV show with Herschel, and here it's kind of the result of how things went bad.
Right.
This was Herschel's attitude right off the bat on the television show, but Herschel seemed to be more receptive early on, and now he's just, damaged and traumatized and everything else.
Right. So Tyrese and Carol are talking, and they talk about how, things are actually looking a little bit up. And Carol says, yeah, knock on wood or something. I'm serious. You never know what's going to happen next. And in the background, we can see Chris and Julie both packing pistols.
Yeah, it got creepy at that point.
Yeah, to be clear, for people who aren't looking at the panels, they're not like holding them out or something. They're tucked into holsters, but still, it's a creepy looking panel.
Especially the way they're shaded to both be hiding kind of in the shadows away from Tyrese and Carol.
Right. So then on the next page, Lori gets on the mix and she goes over to yell at Herschel, what do you mean you're going to throw us out of here? How does that work? How is that going to help anybody? This is stupid. And he moves his hand to slap her, and Rick jumps in and says, that is enough. And Herschel finally blows up and he says, look, I lost 3 kids yesterday, you stupid bitch, 3. Today I find one of you effing my daughter. Then your husband is asking me to take my kids' rooms and give them to you guys, and now you're on my ass because I won't let you freeloaders eat all my damn food and fill my house? Where the hell did you get off? This is my effing house. I have a family to look after. I don't owe you anything.
Although he doesn't say anything.
Right. Again, self-censored. So it's clearly not going anywhere, and finally Herschel grabs a gun, he puts it to Rick's head, and he says, I want you out of here right now. And Otis grabs his arm and pulls the gun away, but it's very clear it's not going to work out, and Rick says, finally, fine, we'll leave, we're leaving. And we can see in the background, not only is Carl watching, but he has his pistol out and at the ready. He was ready to act if he had to.
And that is the Clint Eastwood Carl.
Yeah, he's got the sheriff's hat, he's got kind of a poncho-type jacket, he's got a bandana around his neck, he's ready for some trouble.
We compared that to, is it Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Is that the one that the shot is like right out of, Jim? Do you remember we compared it at one point?
Yeah, he's definitely dressed as the man with no name from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and from High Plains Drifter as well. Same character.
So a little bit later, Otis goes to talk to Herschel and finds Herschel kind of in a fetal position on the floor, and Herschel says, I think I've lost my mind. I almost pulled the trigger, I almost killed a man. We cut back to the group who's leaving, and they're getting ready to pack into the RV, and Glenn tells Rick, I'm not going. I'm in love with Maggie, or at least as close as I'm ever going to be able to get, and I'm staying with her. Rick says he understands, he wants them to be happy. So the rest of the group piles into the RV, they hit the road, and we find out that they are very low on food, again, of course.
Now, when they eventually do leave Herschel's farm in the TV show, do you think Glenn will leave with them?
I think they cut out the middle section and have Maggie leave with Glenn.
Yeah, probably. So that night they're sitting around a campfire eating, but there's not a whole lot of food left, and we hear from Sophia that she's still hungry. Then we have several silent panels of them hunting, foraging in old general stores, killing zombies, but they have apparently found nothing more they can eat. They're out of gas, they haven't seen any stranded cars in a while, things are looking really bad. They start hiking through the woods a little bit, Dale and Andrew do anyway. They climb up kind of the side of a pretty steep mountain, and then they run back to tell the group that they found something, and they're quite impressed with it. So they run back, they hunt the horn, the rest of the group comes back, and we see on the final few pages of volume 2 of issue 12.
The next big spoiler.
Yes, this is the next big spoiler. This is the prison. You've probably heard us mention it before, but yes, they found a giant, this has got to be 20 square acres at least, if not 30 or 40, a giant prison.
One of the rare uses of double-page spreads in Walking Dead.
Yes, very rare. And there's zombies all around, but they say, hey, it may not be safe now, but look at that fence. It can be made to be safe. That place has beds, supplies, clothes, even some food. It has to. So they're going to secure it. And on the final page of the volume, Rick says, it's perfect. We're home. And so ends volume 2 of The Walking Dead.
I love the double page spread because it gives you the scope and it really gets your wheels turning. Like, man, they have towers to be up in. They can see for miles on either side of this thing. They have triple barbed wire fences and
basketball courts.
Yeah, it's plenty of room and housing units, and obviously it's going to be secure.
And before they came across this in the comic, I would never have thought this, but the prison, inside of a prison would be a perfect place to survive the zombie apocalypse. I never thought that before seeing this comic, but it would be. It made me change my own personal zombie apocalypse plan after reading this.
Nice. So any final thoughts on volume 2 and how it relates to the Walking Dead TV show so far?
it actually is a lot more like the show than I thought after rereading. They may have tinkered with when things happen, but a lot of the same, things happen.
That's true. And a lot of the characters are very the same in a lot of the meaningful ways. Superficially, they might be different, but in a lot of the ways that matter, they seem a lot the same. And a lot more, like John said, than I thought before I went back to reread.
And as for the story, I think it's good. I think it's very solid, but being at the prison, I think, is when it really kicked in for me as a reader.
I think I'll agree with you there.
Yeah.
Volumes 3, 4, 5, 6, that's where things really start to get, I don't want to say they start to get good, but where they really start to get to the points where, the points where you talk about for years to come, where, oh, did you get to this issue yet? Did you see where that happened? All those things happen kind of starting in the next few volumes.
Right. I mean, there's definitely been some surprises so far, but it's been pretty straightforward. Every once in a while a zombie will come out and bite somebody that you weren't expecting, but it's been pretty straightforward. Now in the prison, it gets crazy.
So if we don't have anything else, I think it's time to close out the show. We hope you enjoyed episode 172 of the Legion of Dudes. You can send us a voicemail at 516-468-7912 or send us an email, comments at legionofdudes.com. You can check out Half Hour Weekly on Mondays. You can check out WalkingDeadTV.com if that's not where you already found this, to check out coverage of both the TV show and the comic. Check out Out Now with Aaron and Abe, our brand new